This is Dave Shank reporting.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And if you could sign out, I think that would be awesome. This is Colonel Shank signing out or something like that. That'd be awesome.
Sure. This is Colonel Shank, February 1st, 2021, entering the retirement rolls forever.
Marshall in the middle.
Okay. Hey, yeah, good. Hey, Colonel Shank, everybody. Colonel Shank, hey, good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming on. I think we got our connection issues fixed. Things seem to be a lot better. Tell me, where did you grow up at?
Yeah, so hey, Will, thanks for having me, and most importantly, thanks for what you do and what you provide, not only to the ADA community or the Army community, but to the community writ large. And it's really important what you do. And I've had the pleasure of listening to some of your podcasts with the likes. Now I will poke you a little bit. Podcast light fighters. So I'm the heavier type, and so some of the things. Born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida, and who'd have thought that my beautiful wife and I, we would move back to Jacksonville after we retired. So we found a nice home on the water, and so we jumped on that opportunity. But I'm just an ordinary guy from an average sized city that most people don't know. Served 4 years in the Air Force, enlisted, and yeah, I tried college right out of high school. It didn't quite work out for me. So I went the Air Force route, and I had great leaders that I had the opportunity to serve for and look up to, and one by the name of Master Sergeant retired Al Shaw is still a very close friend of mine to this day, and we still talk occasionally. But my plan was to serve 4 years. I did 4 years. I got out during the drawdown after Desert Storm, not part of the drawdown. It was just time for my enlistment. My contract ended. I got out, followed my plan, went back to college, somehow wound up in Army ROTC. And about 2.5 years later, graduated from the University of North Florida by way of the Army ROTC program at the University of Florida. And there I was at beautiful Fort Bliss, Texas for the officer basic course.
What year did you show up for OBC, sir?
Let's see. I started in February 1995.
Oh, wow. Lieutenant Shank in 1995. Wow. Okay, so let's go back to the Air Force for a second. Let's not just gloss over that part of it. What did you do in the Air Force?
So I served, like I said, years security. Again, what a great experience. Great people around me, and not so great people from both. I took with me into the Army, I might add. But unique opportunities to travel a bit, obviously to not just serve my country during my 4-year enlistment, but to deploy in support of Desert Shield and Desert Storm was a very special time.
Do you remember? Do you remember being anxious about deploying, overseas and stuff?
Yeah, I was young, similar to today's soldiers, and you only know sounds really know what. And I remember the day we flew over on C-135 tanker and Muscat, Oman, at an old abandoned airfield that was eventually established. I don't know if it was a U.S. Air Force fighter squadron or what ultimately broke ground there. But we were there about 3 weeks. But I'll never forget when they opened the cargo door to that airplane and that heat wave that came inside. I mean, that's just something that's just one of those things you never forget. And it was like walking into a sauna. And we were there for about 3 weeks until we moved on to other locations.
Did you notice, coming in the Army then as an officer, did you notice a big difference in between being an enlisted guy in the Air Force and being an officer in the United States Army?
Well, there's a significant difference, and I have every right to poke fun at the Air Force because I once wore the blue uniform. So I have the card that I carry in my wallet, and it allows me to do that. The Air Force has really transitioned or transformed, I should say, from 25, 30 years ago. They really have. And we saw it. We saw it in Afghanistan. We saw it in Iraq. Saw it all across the Middle East, for that matter. And because they're forward deployed with the Army, which was unheard of for the most part 30, 40 years ago. So there's been one heck of a transformation, but I've always kept with me, and I sarcastically always make up numbers and tie it to Shank philosophies. And Shank philosophy number 6 is never ask a soldier to do something you wouldn't do or haven't done yourself. And I made that up, based on my 4 years experience in the Air Force, because I've swept motor pools, I've done KP. I've done the shitty things that young soldiers don't necessarily like to do nowadays.
So were you good at shooting your weapon and marching and, standing straight up in formation? Were you good at those kinds of things?
I like to think so. I wasn't like the number one in my formation at marksmanship or at PT, but I wasn't the last either. And again, Shank philosophy straight from my mother, who still tells me this day, son, just Cub Scout motto, as elementary as it sounds, just do your best.
I love it. I love it. So tell me, more about your Shank mottos. So you have several of them that I've heard over the years at different times, and it's it's an inspiring concept. Share how some of that stuff came about, if you don't mind.
Well, some of it's really just elementary. It just pops into my mind, whether I'm out, exercising or lifting weights or doing what have you back when I was in uniform, and some still today now that I'm retired. I learned early on, I walk you through some of my past assignments. My first assignment was in 2nd Infantry Division 5-5 up north in 2ID. And so, and that was, you talk about a 1-year tour that felt like 3 years. And that was back when you would go to the field for 30 days and you wouldn't come out of the field until the 30th day. And I learned so much, during that first assignment. I used to always say that, every second lieutenant should go to Korea for their first assignment, which is impossible. I know that. But I learned so
things that I've heard, from our NCOs is what great leaders they had. And the other thing I've heard from every officer is what great leaders they've had, right? And it just kind of goes at every level, right? Tell me some more of those people that mentored you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll flip it. And I won't even, there's plenty of officers I could talk about, but I'd rather talk about the non-commissioned officers.
Amen. Amen.
And I already talked about one from the Air Force, again, Master Sergeant retired Al Shaw, great American, doing God's work to this day in the St. Louis area. And I love him like a brother. I'll tell you some of the others that, that had impacts on me early on, going back to the time in 5.5 2ID, my first platoon sergeant was Terry Rayner. And so he and then I had Kenneth Brown, and both of those guys just so technically and tactically competent on weapon systems. They both like to have a good time. I like to have a good time, so I'm okay with that. But when it's time to do business and conduct business, we conduct business. So early on, those individuals right there, when I was a battery commander, and this is really unfair to the NCO Corps because I'm only going to name a few, but when I was a battery commander, obviously my first sergeant full of piss and vinegar, and you talk about, again, bringing it every day and hard and fair. across the board, and soldiers loved him for that. And he's got that pedigree for some heroic actions during OIF 1 and I believe it was OIF 4, if I'm not mistaken. But he had a couple rounds of engagements with the enemy and performed brilliantly and performed exactly how I would want my non-commissioned officers to do. And then lastly, again, that's really unfair to so many, but I had No Love Plotnick in 10th Double. American and there and the brand. Again, another guy that down to earth, common sense. You ask him a question, he gives you a candid answer, and that's what you want. As the commanding officer, you want your senior enlisted advisor to be frank and to provide that sage advice and counsel, and not just tell you what you want to hear, but sometimes tell you what you don't want to hear.
Remind me about being a battery commander. Where were you, and when was it? Tell me about an accomplishment, or maybe something that you didn't maybe do quite so well. Tell me some time about battery commander.
Yeah, I was a battery commander, 148A in Wackenheim, Germany, Macaulay Barracks, and again, really special times, some challenging times. And I'll just call it like it is. I took over a formation that had some problems, really had some, I would compare it in terms today, had some extremism in the ranks. And with the help of Jim Bedingfield, who was the battalion commander, and a guy named Bobby Brown, who was the command sergeant major, really with their help and leadership, and we were able to get rid of that cancer and get them out of the Army. And it was really a struggle. But you talk about watching a battleship, over time make a left turn or a 90-degree right turn. It's easy to look back, and I'm a little biased, but I thought it was a thing of beauty, and it wasn't easy. But I'll tell you, we had the best Bradley crews and the best Bradley gunnery scores in the division. Had a guy by the name of Trent Trumpauer, and his Bradley commander was Eric Harden, top gun in the division for Bradley, and had a stinger platoon that, and I'll be the first one to say it, and I did everything to protect them along with my maintenance guys. Because in a heavy division, it's all tanks and Bradleys, and everyone else gets. And so, the stinger platoons and fiction everything. So and reward them just the same. During you're rewarding crews for firing stinger discovery. As a simple example. So, I had a great stinger platoon. I had a great stinger platoon sergeant, guy by the name of David Gonzalez, retired sergeant major. I had Ruben Lopez, was one of my platoon sergeants. I had Walker. I can't remember Walker's first name because I always confuse him with Leroy, but it wasn't Leroy. It was the other Walker. But again, another made it to sergeant major, and they did this on their own accords. And then I had Eric Olson for a period of time, made it to command sergeant major. So, it's a long list of just phenomenal non-commissioned officers that I had the privilege to serve with during my 19 months in battery command there in Germany. So, just phenomenal.
If you, what did you do after battery command?
That's a great question. I'm still trying to figure out how I ended up in that position, but I was the 1st Armored Division commander's aide de camp.
Oh, okay.
So I spent time with
Yeah. How do you get picked to be some aide de camp? How does that happen? I wonder. It's the superstars get picked to go do that. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't know about superstars. I had a lot of superstars around me. They were just kind of pushing me to the front. So, but you talk about a front row seat for everything that transpires at the division level, and then even and below, obviously echelons within the division, but even at the corps level. And what made it even a more special and rewarding assignment was the ramp up to the invasion of Iraq, and then ultimately First Armored Division's deployment to Iraq, and then and my boss, Major General Ricardo Sanchez, at the time, as most know who follow history, he was selected to be the first combined.
You were telling me about working with the general as y'all deployed the war.
Yeah, so talk about a rewarding experience. Going to combat. With your boss, who just happens to be the division commander, and then he's promoted to 3-star, and he becomes the Combined Joint Task Force commander. So I spent about 2.5 months with him at that level. Way over my head. I mean, I was way over my head. Long days, but very rewarding. Some would say very dangerous at times, but ultimately went back to once he hired a field grade officer, because I'm still a captain. So he hires a school trained, field grade officer, former S3 XO, who understands that operational level of warfighting much better than a captain such as myself. And so I went back to division, and I was told by the chief of staff, "Hey, look, we want you to go back to Germany, and you're gonna pick up the new boss, and you're gonna take him around to the area support groups, and he's gonna get an opportunity to meet some of the garrison leadership, both military and civilian, some of the family members, and then you're gonna come back here on this date." Well, that guy was Brigadier General Martin Dempsey. So again, a second opportunity to serve with General Dempsey, now as his aide for a couple of months. Take him around, I do as I'm told, and then we deployed to Germany. It was like 3 of us on a C5, all the way into Germany with a large amount of equipment. So no first class seating, no commercial airfare. That there's some myths out there. But three soldiers, the Air Force crew on the aircraft, of course, and a large number of equipment on a C5, flying from Ramstein into Baghdad. So again, another special opportunity. I spent a few months with him before I redeployed, and ultimately signed at the end of 2003, signed into Human Resources Command.
Oh wow, you went to HRC?
I did.
Tell me about that. That's got to be so. After leaving like war, generals and stuff, then you go to the head of moving people around thing.
Yeah, again, another special experience for me to learn the personnel side of how the Army operates, how the Army runs when it comes to structure and manning, and just really the behind the curtain look at some of the systems in place to keep the personnel train moving. And I wasn't there long, only there about 1.5 years. And before you knew it, I was moving out. I got selected for promotion to major, and then selected to go to the U.S. Marine Corps Command Staff College at Quantico.
Tell me about that, being around a bunch of Marines.
Yeah, you talk about jarheads. And some of them I still talk to this day. And you talk about great Americans, and you just flat belly. I like to say flat-bellied, steely-eyed killers. Well, I went to school for 1 year with several of them, and I'll tell you, I used to joke with many of them, and I still do to this day, that, hey, you guys are a lot smarter than I ever gave you credit for. I just thought you could do push-ups and grunt, and well, they can do push-ups, so they can do pull-ups too, and because they get paid to do pull-ups. But you talk about taking it to the enemy. I had some special people around me during that year at Quantico, and I really learned a lot. And it was a challenging command and staff college. It really was, and I was thankful for having that opportunity to go there.
So, you know, it's interesting. A lot of those schools are about networking, about meeting people and bringing your experiences to the group. You know, did you find that you contributed well in that group environment with the Marines?
Yeah, I think so. And really, again, I attribute it to the special opportunities that I had as coming out of Human Resources Command, being an aide de camp to 2- and 3-star general officers, having served in Iraq in combat, you know, my time in Germany overseas, my time in the Air Force, again, Desert Shield, Desert Storm. So, you know, Marines, they traditionally, Marine majors, they've already served as a S3 and or an XO, and then they go to command staff college. It's not like that in the Army. The Army sends, you know, junior majors such as myself to command and staff college, be it, you know, Fort Leavenworth or one of the sister services like Quantico.
That's awesome. Hey, let's go back just for a second and think about, you know, danger and intrigue. You're riding around with some general officers in combat that are being, I mean, you guys had a target on your head. Tell me about some hairy times. Can you share some of that stuff?
Yeah, you know, we flew a lot, Black Hawk, and when I talk about rooftop level, I mean rooftop level, and I mean low and fast, and you know, and if it was up to me, you know, I would have flown everywhere in a Black Hawk, and if it was up to me, but it wasn't always up to me, and but I mean, you talk about some great aviators. You know, and if there was ever a feeling that some of the UH-60 pilots were flying as if they were flying a commercial airplane, they were gone. And because, as you stated, you know, this was combat, and there were people shooting at us. And so, again, just to reiterate, you know, rooftop level, low and fast was something I got accustomed to really fast. You know, moving in and around, really mostly in and around Baghdad, but there were other places that we flew to. You know, places like Fallujah, Ramadi, Diwania province, Nineveh province, up to Mosul. You know, just the usual places, right? But there were also times required, you know, moving, whether it was in an up-armored Suburban, you know, so up-armored privately owned vehicles, so to speak, or up-armored Humvees in convoy. So a number of times where, you know, we were no different. Sometimes we'd get stuck in traffic, and there were some hairy situations that involved gunfire and some other small explosions.
So tell me about a small explosion. I mean, tell me one of those stories, you know, take me back there. Is it okay? Can you do that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I got my little wiener dog jumping up at me here.
Yeah, let's bring him on up. It's fine.
Yeah, she's a puppy. She doesn't know any better. But, you know, I tell you, you know, no different than any others that were involved, whether it was indirect fire or whether it was a near ambush, a far ambush with small arms or RPGs. I remember, and he'd probably be mad at me if I told the story, but I'm gonna tell anyway. But the first night, General Dempsey had taken command of 1st Armored Division, and I'm with him, and I'm walking him, you know, to his bed down location, and I think we were talking for about, we'd stopped at his location. We were talking for about 30 seconds about the next day and what was going to transpire. You know, and it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, a normal day. But and just a large explosion outside of Baghdad International Airport. And I thought his eyes were going to pop out of his head. And again, it's his first night there, and he's a veteran of Desert Shield, Desert Storm also. So definitely, he wasn't a rookie at combat, that's for sure. But the look on his face, and I said, sir, every night, just get used to it, and be thankful that was outside the wire, and hopefully no Americans were injured or killed.
Wow, that's thanks for telling the story. I appreciate that. Take me to major time. Where were you the XO and S3 and stuff at?
Yeah, sure. So while I'm at HRC, I'm well aware that the SHORAD battalion inactivation plan is on, and it didn't matter whether I agreed or disagreed. That was decisions that were made at echelons above my rank. And during that time, I was going to have to figure out, okay, what am I going to do when I become a major? And so, I'm starting to finish up Quantico, the second half, and I'm like, I told myself, I was like, well, if I want to be an S3, I probably got to go to a Patriot battalion. And I couldn't even spell Patriot, and I still struggle today at times. And so I started reading some of the Patriot manuals, and I mean, it was like reading a whole nother language. I was like, I don't even understand this. And I could look at pictures all day long, and I'll come back to that comment. But I pushed hard to get to an S3 position. I didn't care. I didn't fight for 244. I didn't fight for 55. I wanted to be an S3 in the United States Army, and specifically in our branch. And so I ended up PCSing from Quantico to Fort Bliss, Texas, and was assigned as the S3 to 14488.
That was a SHORAD battalion back then, wasn't it?
It was a SHORAD battalion, and I'll tell you, and it might sting to some who may be listening to this podcast, but it was a poorly organized and poorly created battalion, and I'll tell you why. They took half the battalion from Fort Hood, right, the SHORAD portion, and they built the rest of the battalion from formations at Fort Bliss. And so when I got there, the battalion commander had just taken over, Todd Burgess. Brian Adams was there, this guy is phenomenal, and he was serving as both the S3 and the XO for a period of time until I finally showed up. And the maintenance company that was to support this 88 composite, this new thing in our branch, the maintenance battalion was only half manned. And so it was a struggle. It really was. And then you send a guy like me on top of it to the battalion. And while, yeah, okay, I'm a major and I'm the S3 now, but I can't spell Patriot. And, and then going back to what I said about looking at manuals at Quantico, nothing clicked until I saw the battery or the battalion in a field configuration. And that's when I started to kind of put my arms around it and gain a better understanding. Okay, this is what a Patriot formation looks like in a tactical environment.
It's all about sending data back and forth and being pointed in the right direction, kind of.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So battalion command, where'd you command battalion at?
Yeah. So I got to Fort Bliss in 2006, and I left Fort Bliss in 2014. And so I'm going to answer your question. So I like I said, I was in 144, and within 144, we did a year deployment to Korea. We were on one of those rotations. Again, and again, I'm at HRC when that decision was made, and I said, this will never work. This will never work. And so it worked for about 5 rotations. And again, it was I can say it now. It was terrible. It was terrible decision making. And I'll tell you why, because we didn't have the personnel to sustain it. And it showed clearly when 144 deployed. I was the battalion XO, and we were at like 88% strength in the aggregate. And 30 days out from wheels up from main body 1. And so there was an agreement within the branch. Hey, the branch was told the 8th Army in Korea and Big Army for that matter that, hey, these battalions will deploy at over 90%, right? Well, they gave us an entire AIT class of 14 tangos. So, hey, God bless 31st Brigade and Colonel Chris Putko, and I love him like an uncle, because they got us over 90%. And he did everything in his power to get us there and to help us and ensure we were trained to get out the door. But how many 14 tangos do you really need? And they're all brand new privates. So, we went out at over 90%. But again, it didn't last long. It was only 5 or 6 battalions that went through that rotational effort. And the good news is today you see that those brigade combat teams rotating to Europe and Korea. But that was my first assignment, 144, and then I went to Task Force 33 CRAM, first provisional CRAM task force. Did about 5 months on the ground at Fort Bliss, and then deployed to Iraq for a year. And then from 33 redeployed. I tried to PCS. HRC said no. I said, why not? I've done what you asked me to do. I've been here now 4 years. The HRC response was, well, we're just going to keep you there, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, whatever. And so ended up being trade bait, and went up to 32nd double AMDC. I don't regret the opportunities at 32nd. And I worked for Dan Sauter, who was a great American, and should have been a brigade commander, but just wasn't selected. But I still admire him and his friendship today. But I served as the chief of plans for a year, and then I served as the deputy G3 for a year under John Chavez, and then Jim Payne came in. So from there, I went to take battalion command of 14388 for 2 years. So, like I said, it was eight years at Fort Bliss, but I went to Korea with 144, went to Iraq with 33, and while in command 143. Crazy brutal Grudel and we deployed the battalion to Qatar and Bahrain, ended up putting Patriot in Jordan while we were there. So we're running around 3 countries now instead of 2. And here's some bullshit for you. And I happily share this is, Grudel and I, we're dealing with an anonymous inspector general complaint because we were flying commercial air between these 3 countries, because you cannot rely on Mil Air to get us there in a timely manner. As much as we attempted to fly Mil Air, and we did occasionally when we knew we could. I mean, that's how I got in and out of Jordan when we first put the Patriot battery there. But it's just some of the bullshit that I question. Past leaders around me during that time.
So tell me, did you guys ever, fire a Patriot missile while you were deployed over there?
So as you may know, there was one Patriot missile that was fired after OIF down in Qatar. That was not 143 Cobra Strike.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know who fired that, to be honest with you. I think it was in 2000 and I don't even want to guess, but it was a few years prior. But opportunities to participate in live fires, but never in a Patriot battalion where we were in combat, required to engage a target. So,
what's it like to have your soldiers in like 3 different countries and all over the place? And, look, as a battalion commander, you're trying to wrestle a lot of things, right?
Yeah, no, it's, you're absolutely spot on. And again, I was extremely lucky and grateful for having, Command Sergeant Major Grudel. I had my Ops Sergeant Major, Eric McCrae, who's doing great and wonderful things there at SpaceCom as the SpaceCom Command Sergeant Major. I had 2 phenomenal field grade officers that they both have general officer potential. One, Neil Lake, who's I think he's on the Joint Staff now. He's going to be a brigade commander. I don't know where. And then I had Mark Polini, who's taken 108 this summer. 2 phenomenal field grades. And then when we picked up the Jordan mission, we also picked up additional formations, soldiers, and so forth out of Fort Hood, and so I picked up another sergeant major, two more one battery commander, one maintenance company commander, another field grade officer, Brendan Kavanaugh, so another outstanding at the time young major at the time. And all these young majors have now completed battalion command, and are probably all three are going to be. I'm sure Brendan will be a brigade commander as well. But all told, over 1,200 soldiers and civilians in 3 countries, and you nailed it. And it was a challenge, and it was about leadership. And I don't claim to have gotten everything right, but through my circle of trust and my key leaders, I always believed in empowering my subordinates, my battery commanders, my first sergeants, my staff, not just the officers, but the NCOs. And I had some phenomenal staff NCOs. Not that the officers were bad, but the NCO Corps was just amazing. I had, I'm going to get in trouble here because I'm going to forget names, but I had, at the time, I had Natasha Burke was my S1 NCOIC. I had, Kennedy, I can't remember, my S4 NCOIC, a master sergeant, but she too, again, if we needed something moved or if we needed beans and bullets, she was phenomenal, along with the S4. The S6, I had, this is interesting. My S6, his last name was Kraus, and the S6 NCOIC, his last name was Kraus. So really strange that although they were spelled differently, they were Kraus and Kraus. So an interesting, couple interesting characters, but again, just on their game. And actually, the lieutenant was Kraus. The actual S6 was a guy named Tim Demarath, who continues to do great things in the Army as well as a signal corps officer. Had great young soldiers in the S2, some that I maintain contact with today. Although he is out of the Army, he's doing great things. Brendan Balo, and then across the S3, the nucleus of any formation is the S3, because if they're screwed up, the whole formation will be screwed up. So it's important that the S3 gets it right, and they did for me as battalion commander.
Was there a time you look on that you could tell a story about where it was particularly challenging for you while you had your soldiers deployed? Maybe a memorial service, or maybe somebody did something wrong, or maybe you made a mistake. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great question. I was extremely lucky. I never lost a soldier. As a commander, I never lost a family member. Came close. When I was a battalion XO 144, we lost a family member and a couple soldiers due to some off-duty events. But a very challenging time, and I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about my chaplain, James Choi, when I was a battalion commander, but just the chaplains, what they do in the Army. In the military every day is you talk about a combat multiplier. They're an extremely vital piece to the puzzle, no matter what echelon we're talking about.
Amen to that. Take a few minutes, if you don't mind, and tell me a little bit about your faith and how that's affected you through your service.
Yeah, I probably didn't start saying it because I just didn't think about it a whole lot until I was probably a senior major and then ultimately a battalion commander. But I used to call it the 3 F's, my family, my faith, and the force. And very elementary for a guy like Shank to remember, you notice I didn't say that one F word, by the way. And some people's priorities are different. That was mine. My family, my faith. Most people say faith first. They're neck and neck. I know what I do every day, that God is watching, and He's here with us now. And so we all recognize that. And myself, my children here, and my wife who's upstairs. But and it's an important part of our lives too. Those are again very elementary, but those were my priorities.
Tell me, brag on your family a little bit for me, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. I got a wife. I have a 28-year-old stepdaughter who's married to a soldier. He's in the Army Reserves. They have 2 children, so I have 2 grandchildren, and I have 3 dogs sitting around me right here. And we're pretty. I like to think we're a pretty laid back family that likes to have a good time and you know, spend time with each other and have fun.
What's your hobbies? What's your big thing you do on your off time? Woodworking or fishing or 4-wheeling?
Well, you know, I'm scared to move the camera, but you know, you know, that's my backyard.
Oh wow, look at that. Look at that.
Retirement life is good. We live on the water. We live on the river here in Jacksonville.
So is that salt water? Brackish water?
It's more salt than brackish, but it's about a 20-minute boat ride to the mouth of the St. Johns River where it meets the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh wow. So you're technically on the St. Johns River.
Well, we're on the Trout River, but St. Johns River is about a mile away.
Okay, that's really cool. That is really cool.
So to answer your question, I like fishing.
So so do you go out into the ocean?
Well, it's funny you should ask. I just bought a boat yesterday, and so I've had boats in the past. Just finally got another one yesterday, as a matter of fact. So yes, to answer your question, yes, we'll be going fishing in the ocean.
So you got to tell me about your boat. What kind of boat did you get?
20, similar to the one I had before, sold before I went to Germany in 2017, but a 21-foot center console, Seaborn, got a F200 Yamaha on the back of it. So looking forward to getting it out there and getting the deck bloody with fish.
Amen. Well, that'll be great. That'll be great. You know, you got lots of opportunities, and that boat could go freshwater, go saltwater. You can do whatever you want with it. So that'll be great. And you got a place to park it out there, right?
I do. It's still sitting in the front yard right now because it's been raining well, it started raining last night. It was nice this morning, but I had to cut the grass and do some other requirements. And I got a lift out there. It's just a matter of putting it on the lift.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So did you ever get an opportunity to do anything that you thought was particularly dangerous when you were in the Army?
Well, I would think jumping out of an airplane is kind of dangerous.
Tell me about jumping. Was jumping fun for you? Or, you know, I was kind of scared at first a little bit.
Well, you know, I'd been skydiving before. And so I wasn't really overly worried about jumping out of an airplane. I was a few years older. Not that means much, but I was more concerned about landing, you know, because you land pretty hard. And I had a great time at airborne school. And that's it for me. You know, I've never served at the 82nd and or 101st or anywhere 173rd where you'd have an opportunity to jump out of airplanes. And I'm okay with that. But I had a great time. I really did. And I was never scared. No.
A lot of people don't know this about me, but I'm real famous for jumping. My first 10 jumps were night water jumps. Of course, that's because I closed my eyes and peed my pants.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So, I think that happens to a lot of people, I bet.
Yeah. So, you know, tell me about, you know, failure. Did you ever fail anything in your life? Like I've had friends that were like, you know, this I failed at something, like jump master school for some of my buddies have had trouble with. Did you ever fail anything?
Yeah, of course. You know, I make about 10 mistakes every day, and I have no problem telling people that, you know, you know, and again, going back to the old Shank philosophies, you know, I've always said that, you know, it's okay to make a mistake. Just don't make the same mistake twice or make that mistake in combat, and everything will be all right. And I've seen, I've seen failure within my formation. I've seen failure in the mirror, and there's nobody perfect. And and I've learned from failure. I've learned from other people's failures, by paying attention. It goes back to when I was the division commander's aide de camp. I mean, I saw everything, and I saw brigade commanders saying and briefing and presenting documents to the commanding general that he wasn't happy with at all, and he let them know about it. There's that circle of confidence and trust in me, but it was very much a learning experience. Again, watching senior leaders fail at something, and then how did Major General Sanchez at the time, and then Brigadier General Dempsey, how did they respond to that failure? Like I said, even at the 06 level. So, but I've failed. I've failed in several areas. That we don't have enough time to talk about my failures.
Well, so let's talk about your successes. Tell me about your proudest award. Tell me about that.
First I'll tell you that in my Army career, I was successful because of the people around me. I was successful because of the upbringing that I had from my parents, and who are still married today. And let's see, they've been married about 58 years, if my numbers are right. But really, the people around me, I never. It's never about the awards to me. It's never about the recognition. The best feeling. The best feeling that I ever had in the Army during my time was always during. Sorry, my grandfather clock's going off in the background. Was usually when I was leaving command. Pick an echelon. It happened at every one of them. It was the best feeling when a soldier would come up and say, "Sir, we're really going to miss you." And you talk about getting choked up and just trying to hold it together, and because the love for those soldiers, even at the double MDC level where I last commanded, you're very much removed from that tactical formation side of things. When you think back to platoon leader time and battery commander time, I mean, you're in the mud, and you're embracing the suck, right next to every soldier in the formation. Even at the battalion commander level, there are plenty of opportunities to embrace the suck and roll up your sleeves and get nasty with the soldiers, and in a field environment, during a PT environment, what have you. But like I said, it didn't matter at what echelon that I had the privilege to command. The most rewarding part were soldiers coming up to me afterwards and really just telling me how much they were going to miss me, and they enjoyed the time. And there's no better feeling.
Amen. Tell me a little bit about your patriotism. Are you a big firework guy? Do you have a flagpole in your front yard? That kind of thing.
So I got a flagpole on my dock out there, and not obviously, but it has the American flag at the top. And just last weekend, I think June 4th, I put the U.S. Army flag underneath it to honor the D-Day celebration, but also here in a few days the Army birthday.
Amen.
Amen. On the 14th. So I do my part to had the POWMIA flag up for the month of May. To recognize the month and Memorial Day as well. But I like fireworks. I don't play with them as much as I used to. But yeah, I think I'm pretty patriotic, and I care about my country, and I always that's Will, that's a great question too. Is never, in uniform, we wore the American flag, and we didn't always wear it. We started wearing it when I was a captain in Germany. And, I never forgot the fact that, no matter where I was at or what I was doing, when I had that, when I had it on or when I had it off. When I had it on, I had the red, white, and blue stars and stripes on my shoulder, and it always said U.S. Army on my chest. But when we started wearing the flag, and it was probably like around 2000, I think, when we started wearing it. I never forgot that. I'm representing my country, and again, I just happened to be stationed in Germany at the time, so it was always important, no matter where we were from then on, that you had the stars and stripes on your shoulder.
You talked a little bit about being a commander at the AAMDC level. Tell me more about, brigade level command and then higher command. Remind me where you served and everything.
So one of my running jokes, I got lots of jokes, but I was never a brigade commander. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So it's really odd that I went and served as a double MDC commander in Europe. My predecessor my successor is still in command, Brigadier General Greg Brady. I think he completes, I don't think he's changing out, but he hits his 2-year mark this summer. But that was, you talk about an awesome experience in Europe, and working with allies and partners, all of NATO. Obviously not every country in Europe is not a part of NATO. For example, Sweden, Finland, Switzerland, Austria. I mean, those come to mind real quick. But having opportunities to work with those countries as well. And during my command time, 10th AAMDC had the responsibility of for the state of Israel, and providing forces to support those operational plans and contingency plans. It since has been moved to CENTCOM, Central Command, for that responsibility. But just working shoulder to shoulder with other nations, and some of these international officers that I've met during my time are friends for life. And because you get to know them well, and no different than your fellow Army Brigade, U.S. Army Brigade Combat Team commander. I'm friends for life with lieutenant colonels and sergeants majors from Sweden to the Baltics to Romania to Israel to Germany to the Netherlands to England. Special times for sure.
So speak on that a little bit, if you don't mind. You got an opportunity to work with a lot of people. You found out that us humans were a lot alike, aren't we? Absolutely.
Our allies and partners and who I got to know very well. Their love for their country and their Army or their Air Force is just as strong. It's just as strong as my love for my country and my Army and my Air Force. And they're patriots. Like you mentioned the word patriot before, and they are. Again, we had the opportunity in 10th AAMDC to send soldiers to the D-Day celebrations, to send soldiers to the 100th Independence Day celebrations in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Romania. We sent soldiers to Poland to participate in some of their National Day parades. So the patriotism, not just in the United States of America, but with our allies and partners and through their lenses, so to speak, is just as strong. And I'd be remiss if I didn't kind of go off subject and talk about some of those young soldiers that had the opportunity to participate in those events that I just mentioned. What a special time for them, and for them to make friends, of our allies and our partners, because that's just as important. I watched it firsthand in Israel. Our soldiers in 5-7 ADA Patriot Battalion and the ADA Brigade from the National Guard, who provided the C2 element at the brigade level. and the time they spent in Israel during the exercise rehearsals and execution and making friends and acquaintances. Again, that's just Israel, but you pick a country in Europe, and 10th AAMDC is there. They really are, minus Russia.
Amen. Yeah, right. So, look, please don't talk about any classified stuff, but dude, it's tense over there. I mean, what's keeping us from going crazy?
Well, and you know, that's a great question. You know, during my tenure, there are a few times when I was in Israel and the alarm sounded for rocket attacks from either the Gaza Strip or the Hezbollah up north in Syria or Lebanon, and you know, and what the Russians continue to do today, and threatening the Ukraine sovereignty, and what they did in 2014, you know, when they engaged the Ukrainians and really they annexed a portion of Ukraine known as the Donbass region and Crimea, and some of the threats and that most of us don't even hear about, whether it's through cyber, you know, cyber attacks in the Baltic states, or just continued threats towards Ukraine and maybe even into the Balkans. Yeah, Russia they are a threat, and it's definitely interesting times for sure.
I prefer to spend a lot of time talking about people rather than equipment. But a guy like you, I just can't help but ask about the technology that you've watched come up between the Bradleys to the CRAM to the Patriot. Now I know that you've seen a lot of stuff. Tell me about technology.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't believe the Stinger missile's still around, to be honest with you. I mean, it's just such a close range weapon that, I mean, with drone technology though nowadays, there's a need for it, but there was a gap there of easily a decade, where and hence the reason behind the inactivation of the shore apatines, that there was no threat. I don't necessarily agree with inactivating 8 of the 10 shore apatines at the time, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, to see have the opportunity to work with several of those weapon systems that you mentioned. You know, I worked also with THAAD. You know, we did. You know, when I was commanding 10th AAMDC, you know, I told the Israeli Air Defense Forces commander. He always talked to me about, we got to get THAAD in Israel. We got to get THAAD in Israel. And I had known this guy since 2014 when I first met him. And my first week in command, I had an office call with him up in Germany. And I said, I'm going to put THAAD in Israel. And I was really talking out of my ass. And but what happened? We ended up deploying THAAD to Israel under Secretary Mattis as the defense. As Secretary of Defense, his concept of dynamic force employment. So again, special time to work around all those weapon systems that you mentioned. And again, going back to our allies and partners, you know, whether it was in the Middle East, whether it was in Asia and Korea, or the opportunities that I had all across Europe and Israel, you know, putting my hands on some of our allies and partners' weapon systems and getting, you know, a front row seat to briefings and having the opportunity to, you know, go through training with some of their soldiers and airmen.
Do me a favor, if you don't mind. Tell me 2 things. Tell me what's our next biggest threat in air defense that we haven't maybe thought of, and what we're doing about it.
Yeah, I mean, our greatest challenge right now, this is my opinion, is we've got to be able to talk, meaning network architecture. And we've got to have a layered defense, meaning, you know, whether you start with, you know, small arms to that Stinger missile that I mentioned, you know, to that next layer, to Patriot, to THAAD, to the Navy's SM-3 and SM-6 capability and so forth. So you've got to have a layered defense, and you've got to put money into programs. You've got to speed up the acquisition process. It takes too long because the enemy doesn't stop, and our enemy today may not be our enemy tomorrow, but the Russians aren't going anywhere and the Chinese aren't going anywhere. And, you just use the Chinese as an example. They're doing, they're building island chains. And so they're expanding their footprint into the Pacific. And that's going to provide them even greater standoff. It provides them a bubble, so to speak, of defense. And it's going to be hard to break through that bubble. And that's a very elementary term, but that's really what it is. And the Russians have done the same. While the United States and the coalition were fighting for 15, 20 years in Afghanistan and in and out of Iraq and in and out of Syria, conducting coin operations, counterinsurgency operations. The Russians and the Chinese, they not only were they watching us, but they were modernizing as well. And so we've got to build an architecture, a network architecture, focused on all domains. Air, land, sea, space, cyber, information warfare. And we've got to be able to talk, and then we've got to have those kinetic and non-kinetic weapons and effectors that provide that layer of defense.
I just sound like I left a briefing from the Pentagon. Okay, but that was awesome. That was awesome.
That's pretty good, because I never worked at the Pentagon.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So if you could go back and relive 1 year again, or one deployment, or one command, where would you go? Where would you want to go back to?
Wow, that's a tough question. I was so fortunate and really lucky, the opportunities I had where I served. I talked about my 8 years in and out of Fort Bliss. I didn't even tell you, I went to the Armor Captain's course. So I did 6 months at Fort Knox, again, outside the branch. Did my time at HRC, Quantico, my year at the War College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, my time with 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment in Colorado, 2 tours to Korea, 2 tours to Europe, and a couple tours to the Middle East, a couple trips in and out of Afghanistan, a couple trips in and out of Syria, short trips when I did some time at CENTCOM. And so really, I don't have the luxury to talk about my time at Fort Polk, because I was never stationed there. I was never stationed at Fort Riley or Fort Drum, and I'm sure they're beautiful places, but I never wanted to go there, and I didn't go there, and I'm thankful. And I never went to, and I was never stationed at the Pentagon, like I just said. And so, and I'm okay with that too. But that's a hard question. If I could relive another year again, it would probably be, and this might sting some people that they're going to watch or are watching now, but it was probably my year at my time at Fort Carson in the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment. And I'll tell you why, for a couple reasons. It's a beautiful state, Colorado. It really is. And I'm Florida through and through. I'm from Florida, and I'm back in Florida, and I love it here. But Colorado is a beautiful state. There's something there for everybody. In the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment, every officer, they wanted to be there. They asked to go to Fort Carson and to be in the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment. And really, that's just a credit to the unit itself. And the rich history and traditions of the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment. And then the last piece of that was just the leaders that were there during the time while I was there. And I named some of them earlier on, and just incredible opportunities to work with those people and to learn from them.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. One of the things, and I'm not saying we need to close this out, but one of the things I just want to remind us of that I would love for you to do before we get done is for you to salute and report. I would love for you to call your unit to attention, and then I would love for you to salute and sign out. You know, I have visions of this, you know, being used as a memorial service or for your family one day. I'll tell you, you probably don't have a whole lot of videos of those kinds of things. And, you know, I would love that if you don't mind. If I would love that. The focus of all of this is for your family. You know, it's great to tell stories, and of course, other soldiers love to hear it. But I'm going to package this and you know, send you a box and a thumb drive that's got this interview in it, a memorial slideshow, and then here's our Marshall in the Middle coin. You know, so that's what, you know, I'm not sure if you're fully briefed on, you know, kind of what we're doing, but that's kind of what we're trying to do here because if we don't tell these stories, sir, they don't get told. You know, if we don't talk about it, your kids and grandkids won't know. You know, your buddies will, and they'll know a little bit. But now that your story's told, we get to hear it. Are you a college football fan?
Of course.
What's your team?
Blue and orange, Florida Gators.
Oh, I'm an Auburn fan.
That's okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we're doing. Just so you know, I just want to put that in our head, so you can think about it when you're in the mood to do that. I would love it if you'd be willing to. You know, there's something comforting about hearing our commanders call us to attention, I think.
Yeah. No, those were fun times. They really were. I was always quick to get out of, you know, I need to get out from in front of the formation and get my senior enlisted advisor back up there quickly before I say something I'm not supposed to say.
Yeah, that's real smart, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, you talked about, you know, being a college football fan. Tell me about high school. Were you in sports and stuff in school, and, you know, Pee Wee football, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I played sports all growing up through school, and I wasn't anything special, and it just gave me something to do after class. And I mean, I was probably maybe a little above average athlete, and that's what I was. I was somewhat fast, and you know, I just had some skills, but again, I was nothing special, nothing. No all-state football player or all-state basketball or anything like that. But I enjoyed playing because of the camaraderie.
Oh yeah. I hear you. Well, take an opportunity. I'm getting an alert here on my end about a low battery, and I don't want to lose. There we go. Hey, I like the lighting over here better. I
turn around so I can be near a socket.
Oh, that's great. So tell me a story you haven't told yet. I mean, tell me something, you know, so I don't know, you got a million stories, right?
Yeah, we all got stories, and most of them are true.
Amen.
Let's see, what's a good story to tell? Well, I'm living what I want to do, you know, after the military. Like I talked about earlier, you know, my wife and our three little dogs we're living on the water, and you know, we didn't intend to come back to Jacksonville. We were looking a little further south. We were looking in Florida, but you know, we came upon this piece of property with a house on the water for the right price, and didn't hesitate because it wouldn't have lasted long. I think it was on the market this is back in we found it, I think, back in late October, early November. I think it had been on the market for about 8 hours, and we just stumbled across it, and we offered them the asking price for it, and they accepted. So so pretty happy to be here and enjoying living on the waterfront. You know, I am working. I'm employed as well, and what a shameless plug, right? But I'm an air and missile defense consultant. I do work for a small company, Advanced Strategic Insight. I'm the senior ground forces representative to the company, and it's a small industry company. mostly a retired Air Force, probably 70% of them retired Air Force. There's about 100 employees total, but I work from home. And again, it goes back to living on the water. Life is pretty good right now. And so for those that are observing or watching, you know, and you got a few years left to go, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and the grass is very green on this side.
Amen, sir. That's awesome. That is great to hear. You know, that's great to hear that you know, did you dream of being a soldier as a kid? You know, did you have dreams of this kind of life, or what did you think about when you were young?
Yeah, never ever thought I'd be in the military. You know, I have three brothers, and my older brother was in Army ROTC in high school, and you know, I always got the question, hey, how come you're not in ROTC? And I'm like, that's not for me, right? And he didn't go in the military, and I did, you know. So you know, it's funny how things work out. And honestly, I saw the Army, you know, not so much the Air Force. The Air Force was just a platform for me, a stepping stone, so to speak. And like I said earlier on, no regrets at all. And I'd do it all again tomorrow, if I had to. And but you know, I saw the Army. You know, when I had a cadet in one of my courses in college, I started talking to him one day, and he was telling me about you know, what they did in his classes, and you know, what he would fall in on at graduation and so on and so forth. And so he convinced me. He's like, hey, just go talk to one of the cadre. And so I followed his advice. So I go to the ROTC department, and I talked to this old captain, gray hair, tall, thin guy, 75th Ranger Regiment, combat patch from Vietnam. And I'm thinking, man, this guy, you know, and I knew enough about, you know, Vietnam and combat patches and the Ranger Regiment that, okay, this guy's a pretty tough individual, and just as soft spoken as you can imagine, and just talked to me about the course and said, hey, you know what, you know, it won't hurt anything if you sign up for the 1 credit hour course. You know, you're on the GI Bill, which I was, thanks to the Air Force. So I didn't pay for college. And I said, okay, I'll do that. I'll sign up for the 1 credit hour course. And so I did that. I enjoyed it. You know, I went to part of the program was you go to PT every Friday morning. And then you participate maybe in classroom training. Maybe it was go out in the woods and do map reading or patrolling or what have you. But I enjoyed it so much. And again, it goes back to that camaraderie thing. I was going to PT Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, even though I didn't have to. And I really enjoyed it. But I think really the light at the end of the tunnel of graduating college to me was I was going to be commissioned in the United States Army. I was going to be a second lieutenant, and I was going to earn a paycheck. I mean, it was a job right out of college, and I knew what I would be doing. And at the time, I didn't know what branch I was going to serve in, but I knew those 3 things that I just listed, and that's probably why I came in the Army. And then again, like I went through my career path with all those various locations, and it goes back to my time in 3rd ACR. That was probably when the light bulb went on and said, hey, this is a career. And so be it 30 years later.
So I asked you the question about where would you go back and spend another year? This question is, don't make me go back to this place in time. Where do not send me back to so-and-so place. Is there anything like that in your career where I just don't want to go back to that hell?
Yeah, you know, and I hate to say the unit again, but because it wasn't the unit, it wasn't the soldiers. It was those who had opportunity to make the formation better. And it was 144. It was the first year in 144. It was a terrible environment. We didn't have the manning. We didn't have the equipment. We were asked to be the test battalion as an 88 composite formation. And then the second year of my time there, 144 minus went to Korea. They took the Avenger battery, they went to Iraq, and they took the Sentinel platoon and they went to Afghanistan. And so you talk about, I sometimes sarcastically say, you know what happens when you pile shit on top of shit? You get a big pile of shit. And it was not overwhelming, but it was very challenging. And I think it could have been done very differently during my time in that formation. And what I mean by differently, the senior leaders outside of 144 at echelons above maybe didn't quite see the light that they should have.
So you were in the Army and you went through a couple of different uniforms and a couple of different boots. Tell me about your favorite boots and uniforms you wore.
Yeah, so that's a great question, because I've talked about this with my wife before too, and others, that, you know, a lot of times you see professional football players or professional athletes, they have their jerseys hung in framed glass, right? Well, I've got, I've got olive drab from the Air Force, right? I've got the woodland camouflage from the Air Force, right? I've got the chocolate chips from Desert Shield, Desert Storm, right? I've got my Air Force blue uniform, right? I'm in the Army now, so goes the song, right? I'm back in Woodlands. This is where it gets dangerous because I might miss something. Hell, I'm not even going to talk about PT uniforms, but I'm back in my Woodlands, or the beret for that matter. I go from Woodlands to DCUs. Then we go from back to Woodlands, ultimately to the ASUs, no, ACUs,
Mm-hmm.
ACUs. But of course, the Army green dress uniform, you got the blue dress uniform, and then you have the ASU dress uniform. But then you go from the ACUs to the OCPs ultimately, and I think I covered them all, because fortunately I did not have to purchase a set of the current dress uniform. I'm not even sure what it's called, to be honest with you.
I don't either, but it is really nice looking.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
I like it way better than the blues. I never was really that much of a fan of the blues. Now I love the dress uniform, the dress, the dress blues, the mess kind of thing.
Mess dress, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm a fan of. Tell me about ceremonies. Were you part of any type, like in the Army we had prop blast, or in the 82nd we had prop blast where the lieutenants got, haze, so to speak. Was there anything like an indoctrination or anything like that you went through at any units or any time?
Yeah, I in the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment, you participate in a spur ride. And but unfortunately, and sometimes for all the right reasons, those promotion ceremonies from 30 years ago, you use the word hazing, so I'll throw that back at you. But even some of the spur ride events, like I said, promotions, unfortunately, that tradition is long gone. And it's long gone for some, for the right reasons. Some people would get carried away, and and some soldiers or service members were injured, and if I'm not mistaken, some of them were killed, from whether it was from drinking, whether it was from blood wings, things of that nature, or the punch to the chest. And so forth. So it did get carried away at times, but as during my young days, during your younger days, I mean, that was tradition, and everybody participated, and it was like a rite of passage. And you go from E4 to sergeant, maybe you go from first lieutenant to captain. You go from basic parachutist to the jump master, and so forth. So you earn your spurs. So yeah, the spur ride was probably, to answer your question, was fun.
So you got your Stetson and spurs and stuff?
Oh yeah, yeah, got it
Oh,
all.
yeah, that's great. That's
Yep.
great. That's great. So let's do that salute and report. You think you're in the mood to do that?
Do I have to stand up?
You don't have to. You don't have to. You can do it right there, seated down, right where you're at. It'd be just fine.
Yeah. This is Dave Shank reporting.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And if you could sign out, I think that would be awesome. This is Colonel Shank signing out or something like that. That'd be awesome.
Sure. This is Colonel Shank, February 1st, 2021, entering the retirement rolls forever.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome, sir. Thank you. Thank you. That's cool. That's cool. Retirement mode forever. How about that?
That's it.
How about that? So I'll tell you, when I transitioned out of the Army and took off the rank, it was weird. It was weird to walk around in a community and nobody knew I was the first sergeant. They didn't get out of my way like they were supposed to. Did you notice any kind of transition from being in the military to out? It might be so new you're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, no, I was never hard on being on pomp and circumstance and hey, here comes the colonel, get out of his way. I mean, I always just saw myself as one of the guys. And everybody stands up when you walk into a room. It's like, hey, you guys sit down, man. You guys are standing up like my dad's behind me or something. And I recognize that that's how the Army functions and the military writ large. But it wasn't that big of a deal to me that I got the rich history and traditions and where the salute comes from and why. And I got all of that. And it's important, but and I never made light of it, but I didn't take myself too serious either. That hey, I'm the colonel and you're not. I never thought that way ever. Always treated soldiers and family members with dignity and respect. Again, Shank philosophy: please and thank you go a long way. And last point on this topic is. I practiced many years at being a good listener. And because I wasn't a good listener when I was a lieutenant, I wasn't. And what do I mean by that? I can tell you probably as I became a major and definitely when I was a battalion commander, when I talked to soldiers and family members, I was listening. And I was trying to remind myself through just unique ways of how I'm going to remember that this young PFC soldier his wife is 4 months pregnant with their second child. They're expecting a girl because I'm going to run into that soldier in 3 months. And I want to be able to remember that and to say, hey, you made specialists. You were just a PFC 4 months ago. Hey, speaking of that, how's your wife doing? She's probably ready to give birth here in a month or so. And the credibility, the street cred, and the wasta, when you're talking to a soldier and you can remember all that, and it's to me it was personal, and it was genuine, that I could have that conversation and be able to remember. And it was just I attribute it to just being a good listener and practicing for many years, and paying attention.
And that is amazing. Thanks for speaking about that. Is there what kind of music do you like? Is there a particular kind of like a playlist you think you'd like played at your memorial service one day when the guys get ready to, after the shots have been fired and the bugles played and the guys are popping open a drink, what music playlist are we going to listen to?
When I took battery command, and I didn't do it during battalion command because that's kind of controlled because it's on a parade field. But when I took battery command, the music I had playing leading up to the ceremony I had Pink Floyd just at a low roar, just in the like background music, and people thought I was crazy for doing that. And what for? I mean, why not play some music? And I like classic rock. I like alternative rock. And that's probably what I listen to most to this day. Is that classic rock? I don't want to listen to any band. I mean, I can say Guns N' Roses, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, but I like alternative rock also. So
that's great. That's great. So what's next? What's long term? You're consulting. You're fishing. You're relaxing. Is that's it?
yeah, sometimes some would say I'm consulting and fishing at the same time.
Amen. Well, that's probably your bosses that are worried about your productivity, maybe.
Yeah, well, as you said, as long as I'm producing, they should be happy, right?
Amen.
And, yeah, long term, probably work till I'm for another 5-10 years, and play it by ear. I mean, I'm in no hurry. I'm going nowhere fast, and life is good. Again, for those watching, it's green on this side. There's a pension involved, and I don't have to worry about my next paycheck, because I did my time, and now I'm a retired service member.
Amen. Amen. So close us out. Give us something to give us some advice for that young service member, or somebody that might be thinking about joining the Army or something.
Yeah, sure. Hey, another Shankism. You can't win if you don't enter. And I'll tell you, sometimes you got to be willing to take chances, and you want to take calculated risk. And for anyone listening, and whether you're thinking about joining the military, trust your instincts. Do what your gut tells you, because usually it's right. But and then for those who serve and continue to serve, one, thank you. Two, there are mothers and fathers out there that trust you to take care of their sons and daughters, and I trust you to do the same, as I did for 30 years as a 26 years as a commissioned officer. Don't ever forget that you are responsible for America's sons and daughters. And I would also submit that, and it's lacking sometimes, but use common sense. Use common sense. If it doesn't make sense, make a decision and stick to it. And if you get your ass chewed, you get your ass chewed. But at the end of the day, no different than what I did for 30 years. I worked hard every day. I earned my paycheck, and I slept good at night knowing I did work hard and earn my paycheck.
Amen. Sir, I salute you. Thank you. You're definitely a hero, I know. Thank you, sir.
All right, Will. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It's been my pleasure, sir. I love you.
Hey, send me the address too, because I want to donate to your cause.
Formerforce.com. Formerforce.com.
Formerforce.com. So, and I challenge those others out there that this is great what Will's out there doing and interviewing, and not because he interviewed me, but what a fantastic tribute to some of our past leaders that I've seen on your podcast. And thanks so much for what you're doing. And formerforce.com, and $100 coming from the Shanks.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
You, and I challenge others out there that if you can donate, please do so.
Thanks, sir. I sure do appreciate it. Love you.
You got it. Take care, Will. Love you too, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.